I wasn't a yo-yo dieter anymore. Like that was the very first thing. I didn't gain weight, but I wasn't losing weight and I wasn't back and forth. I had really stabilized where I was at. And that was huge for me. It was huge because I didn't wake up every day being on a diet.
Our guest today, Nancy Leeds Gribble, thought she had it all. She was a successful realtor, married to the love of her life, and mother to a beautiful boy. Then tragedy struck, changing her world forever. She managed to put her life back together, and then it struck again. Living in a haze of grief for several years, Nancy decided to take control of her life, change her mindset and her priorities. She enrolled in the Institute of Integrative Medicine, immersed herself in her love of health and fitness, and once again found joy. Fast forward to today, and Nancy is a culinary nutrition and lifestyle expert. She wants you to know that you don't have to be defined or restricted by your age. With an emphasis on exercise and plant-based eating, she helps women, especially women over 50, achieve sustainable health, mind, and body transformations to live longer, happier lives. Nancy's energy is infectious, her story is one of resilience, and her message is one of hope. Dotsie and I are very honored to have Nancy here to share her story with us. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a beautiful intro. Thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be here.
We want to learn more about you as we traverse this show. And I want to start with the two tragedies that I alluded to in the intro, because they were really life-changing and put you on the wellness path that you are on today. So
Yes.
can you share what happened and how these experiences changed you from this girl who wanted to be skinny at all costs to this woman who really celebrates her muscles and vibrant health instead?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm from Florida and grew up there. I love everything about Florida, the sun, the sand, the surf. And after I graduated from college, I went into real estate and that was my career and I was doing very well. And later in life, I met my husband and we got married. And when my son was 2, the world came crashing down. It was 2008. If anyone remembers from that period, that was when we had the whole market crash. And at the same time, I'm trying to navigate that in my professional life. We got the worst news. My husband had been diagnosed with stage 4 brain cancer, glioblastoma. And the next, he was given about 6 months to live and he made it up till 9 months. But when he passed away at the end of 2009, I found myself a single mom with no career really anymore. I had a very significant income that had dropped because of the market crash. I had lost all my investment properties. So I also found myself bankrupt and in debt, over $1.5 million. And I really just kind of walked around in a fog for a while. Like, what am I going to do here? I don't really know how to pick myself up. And I'm trying to scrabble in real estate again. And I'll just condense that. The next 3 years, that's kind of how I did. I felt very robotic. And then I met somebody. And I always say, I thought life was on the upswing again. And we got very serious. And I introduced him to my son. We got engaged. And then all of a sudden, he's got all this weird back pain and goes in. They're like, oh, it's from a biking accident and you have to have surgery. So we set him up for surgery and he goes in and they come back out like in 45 minutes and they're like, we're not doing the surgery. And I said, oh, like he's fine? They're like, no. He's not fine. He has end-stage pancreatic cancer and he has about 2 to 3 weeks to live. And I'm like, you're kidding. I'm like, you're kidding me. And of course, all the thoughts are like, why God, what's happening here? But in the moment, I was there for him. The worst, I always try not to cry here. The worst Band-Aid was having to tell my son again that not only had he lost his father, but the person that he thought would now come into his life had also passed away. And it was a horrible, horrible time. But it made me reflect, right? I went, okay, I can't go back in that fog. And I'm like, I have to do something. But what really was striking me was two things. One, both of these gentlemen, most of these men, they looked very fit on the outside, right? They were very active. They looked very fit. And so I was like, so something's going on our insides that we don't even know about until it's potentially too late. And I realized right then, my son deserves to have the healthiest mom possible. I'm an older mom, I'm a single mom, and I'm like, I got to figure this out. And the other part of that was not just the health arena, but the life arena. I had kind of said, oh, this second person came into my life and now everything is good. And I'm like, no, like that's up to us. People can come in and they can enhance it, right? But they don't make our lives. Like we have to make our lives, and I have to feel good with who I am. And that started my whole journey into going to the integrative nutrition for health, because I wanted to learn about it for myself. But then I fell in love with it, and then I just kept going and changed careers and did all the things.
And so I read that you went plant-based in your early 40s after attending a Humane Society event. And I especially liked that, learning about the dairy industry's kind of myriad of horrors and offenses that inspired you really to become vegan. So where does this fit in? When is, as you said, so healthy on the outside, these guys, but you go, something's going on the inside. Then what took you all the way to literally going to school for integrative medicine and natural nutrition, natural medicine? Fill that gap.
Right. Because that's the whole other side of kind of the lifestyle. So I went vegetarian in my early 20s. I had received when I was younger, I was into the ocean. I'd signed, a dolphin safe tuna thing. They were going around, and then I was on a list. And I was at home, I was cooking dinner. I'm not going to say what I was cooking. And I get this magazine and I open it up, and it's factory farming. And I'm like, whoa, what is this? And I read it and I am crying. And literally that moment I went, I will not be a part of that. I don't know what this is, but I will not be a part of it. So I became, stopped eating all meat, eggs, everything right there. But I didn't connect the dairy dots. Now I am also
dairy dots. I like that.
Yeah, I'm also very open. I was not nutrition bound at all. Like I had one goal. It's like, be skinny. Like that's the goal. That's your worth. You got to be skinny. You got to eat nothing. And that's it. So I was a very unhealthy vegetarian. And then when I went to a Humane Society conference in DC, so I probably had been vegetarian at this point about 18, 19 years. And I went to this conference and there was a speaker and he's talking about the dairy industry. And just like it had been for me when I opened that magazine, my eyes went, what? Like this is how dairy cows are treated. Yeah. This is what dairy is. And right then and there I went, dairy's out. And that's how I became vegan, but still not a healthy vegan. I was, Cliff Bars, Red Bull, let's have a few French fries here, let's have some pasta there. I mean, I had no idea really what I was doing. When James was diagnosed, we did dive into like plant-based, we did dive into it and read it, but it didn't stick with me fully because there was so much stuff going on. And I was kind of mad. I was a little mad, I'm not going to lie. When I came out of it, after Peter had passed away, it was the click that went back. And I was like, wait a minute, all that stuff I was reading when James was diagnosed with cancer and plants and the power for that, how powerful it is to heal, build, support our health and how we can take control of this. And that is really kind of how my vegan plant-based journey went. It went vegetarian, vegan, plant-based, vegan.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you make the transition from being an unhealthy eater to a healthy eater? And what happened to your body? Because a lot of times people worry that if they stop worrying about always being skinny all the time, then they will automatically lose control and gain weight.
Right.
So how did you do that? Because that's a mindset too, alongside habit.
Right, correct. I just gave myself grace, first of all, but I had learned what to eat, and I just was focused on, I'm like, okay, instead of tonight having, I don't know, chips and salsa, I'm going to add some beans to it, and I'm just going to start adding in more good things. And it was a process. I mean, some people laugh. I didn't like broccoli. I didn't like sweet potatoes. I didn't like so many things that are now my staple across the board. And I couldn't imagine not having them. But I leaned into it and I took it slowly. I took it day by day, but I made an effort. I was very committed that I was going to be as healthy as I possibly could. And the change is, so I always had fluctuated. I was a yo-yo dieter. Like I tell everybody, we all know it's super easy to lose weight, right? Keeping it off, whole different ball game, and doing it in a healthy manner that's sustainable. And so as I started adding in all the really nutritious foods, and it really was, for me, it was lots of legumes in the beginning, grains, fruit, greens, and then I started making meals and it just kind of grew. I wasn't a yo-yo dieter anymore. Like that was the very first thing. I didn't gain weight, but I wasn't losing weight and I wasn't back and forth. I had really stabilized where I was at. And that was huge for me. It was huge because I didn't wake up every day being on a diet.
That image that you had of yourself in your head was skinny. I have to be skinny. I have to do everything to be skinny. And now you're changing to such a holistic way of living.
Yes.
So was that hard in the beginning? Because we have that negative self-talk that's like, oh, no, you're supposed to be skinny. Because that's what you've been telling yourself your whole life almost by that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it definitely was. And there's like that moment fear where it's like, oh my gosh. I think it's really, really my driving factor of I have to be healthy. Like it's not a negotiable for me. And I really, when I work with women, I talk about this and I call it the Midlife Manifesto, and which is also your why. Like surface level stuff, like I want to be skinny, I want to fit in a bathing suit, I want to do those things. They don't sustain you, right? They're not going to keep you moving forward when it gets hard, and it will get hard because you're making so many changes. You might be making so many changes, I would say. So for me, it was at the core of everything I do. Health is paramount. Like the saying is so true. If you have your health, you have 1,000 dreams. If you don't, you have one. And because I witnessed it and I held the hand of two people I love immensely as they took their last breath, like that's a lasting impact. Right. And so that would keep me going. But what happened was when I first started saying I have to be healthy for my son, right? Like I'm like, okay, I'm doing this for him. But we all know there's that shift that eventually happens when you start taking care of yourself, when you put you on your own to-do list. You're like, wait a minute, I like this for me. I'm feeling pretty good. And then you want to keep going. And then I think that's when it really becomes lifestyle, habit, sustainable, is when you have that. And you're like, I'm not giving this up for anything.
You have photos on your Instagram page of you at 48 in a bathing suit and you at 58 in a bathing suit. And there is a big difference. You look great in both pictures, but you definitely look more vibrant, healthy, toner, muscular, just more athletic out, and not just going after the skinny, which a lot of women in their 40s say, oh, I'm gaining weights because I'm getting older. Well, you're proof positive that, well, Dotsie and I Dotsy's 50, I'm 60. So we're proof positive that you don't have to gain weight, and that it might not be because we're older that we gain weight. In
Right.
fact, Dotsy interviewed Dr. William Lee on the podcast a few weeks ago, where he talked about metabolism and said that humans' metabolism stays the same from age 20 to 60, and then it goes down 0.7% per year until you're in your through your 90s. So what's going on with the women you see that they're struggling with weight?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a lot of the women that I work with, and myself included, we come in, and it was, if you want to lose weight, you have to eat less and less and less, and you've got to run miles and miles and miles. Like, that was it. That's how you lost weight. And after I went to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition and then continued studying, that's when I really learned, not just, I was already now at this point plant-based, but that was when I really learned how you optimize a plate with your macronutrients and can really change your body composition by fueling your body right, eating more, and then exercising efficiently and strength training. And so that is really the funny thing. In my 40s, I did some, like, I would follow some workouts and they had weights, but it was like 20 minutes a day for maybe twice a week or something like that. And I was under so much stress, my body wasn't going to do anything. But it's when I went plant-based and when I was focused on the health, that's when my weight stabilized. But I was fluffy. I was like fluffy, but my weight was fine. It's when I went and started focusing on macronutrients and learning that we actually need a certain amount of protein and we need a certain amount of carbohydrates and fats and that proportion, that I really started to notice my body changing. When women come to me, and I work primarily with a lot of women in midlife and older, and the first thing is, it's my hormones, and they're like, that's the reason. And we talk, and it's like, no, everything is just so out of balance, and we've got to get your body in balance. It could be your hormones, but first let's focus on nutrition, and then let's focus on rest and strength training, and then supplements if you need them. And then if you need, I call it like pharmaceuticals, if you need any kind of hormone replacement therapy or stuff. But the way it is now, it's backwards. People want to go for the hormone replacement therapy, and that could just be a Band-Aid that's not fixing anything if you don't manage the lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
What did you mean when you said macros and a certain percent? Yeah. Could you share what you recommend to women in terms of?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So when I work with women, I like to focus on macronutrients instead of calories. So most women my age, very calorie focused. So it's, if you want to lose weight, energy in, energy out, how many calories you consume, how many calories go out, right? And so instead of just saying, okay, 1,500 calories, have at it, go eat whatever you want, even if it's plant-based, we break it down. I break it down into, within that 1,500 calories, I would like you to consume anywhere from 25 to 35% of that in protein, maybe 40% in healthy carbohydrates, and 30% in fat, healthy fats. What I love when I learned about macronutrients, so those are your proteins, your fats, and your carbs, was that they're very tailored to the person. So it's based on your age, your height, your goals, your lifestyle. And so it's not a one size fits all. And I think that's the beauty of it. And that is where it helps your body just thrive, burn fat, and start building that lean muscle that we really need always, but especially as we age.
I feel like we'd be remiss to skip over talking deeper about the grief you experienced, because that was a lot at the beginning.
Yeah.
Learning both of these wonderful humans that you loved, and both of them were quick. I mean, you didn't have a lot of time from the time they were diagnosed. I'm positive there are many listening who have experienced great grief, and because of both of these profound losses, I'm curious on some of the things that help you cope with the grief and what you would recommend to those who are listening who maybe want to be supportive of their friends and loved ones who've lost someone close. Like, are there specifics, things that you should say or not to say, or so that we can love on those who've gone through this incredible, profound grief like you have?
Yeah. Oh, I love that question. Yeah. I would say, first of all, say something. People get really nervous. They're like it's not contagious. But they get very nervous of, oh my gosh, your husband passed away. I feel bad. So then I'm not going to invite you to anything. And I'm kind of not going to talk to you because I don't want to feel bad and I don't know what to say. And that is so much worse than if you just acknowledge, like, I'm sorry, just say I'm sorry. I think acknowledgement is a big one that I would say for people with their friends. Don't worry about what you're saying. Just say something, and maybe don't ask if the person needs something. Sometimes just show up and be there. For me, hands down, it was my faith that got me through. Of course, there were days I always say it. In the same breath, I'm on my knees, cursing out the God that I love, while at the same time I'm praying to the God that I love to help me get through. But that's, God, my Father. That's, he's my parent, so he can take it. And so he did. And that really, honestly, it was my faith for the first few years, and my family and my friends. I always said I'm going to write a book called Living Life by the F Word, and I go, it's not what you think. It's faith, family, friends, food, and fitness. And because they really are what held me together during that time. My family was amazing for me. And the close friends that I had, they rallied around me. They helped me with my son. I had to go out and take all kinds of odd jobs, and they really helped me get through. And so for other people, I'm going to say, don't put a timeline on your grief, first of all. Like,
good point.
I mean, it really took me a while. Allow yourself all the emotions. I mean, some emotions you have, they don't seem very pretty. And maybe the thoughts you have don't seem very nice at times, but allow yourself them. And if they feel detrimental to your well-being, go to a counselor, go talk to somebody. I did. And because I was really stuck and really confused about a lot of things. So just, I always use the word, but give yourself a lot of grace. And there's no timeline on the grief, especially depending on where that grief is coming from. So many different scenarios of loss.
I was wondering that, do you still experience grief from
I do.
those tragedies? Yeah.
I do. They're like waves, in the beginning, it's like a tsunami, right? It's always hitting you. And then it kind of trickles down, and then it just becomes ripples every once in a while. You'll have emotions and memories, and you'll cry. And even to this day, almost on the podcast, I start to tear up just thinking about them and what we went through and what they went through. But now I really, one thing that is really hard for some women, I do work with widows, and help them get back on their game, and they feel guilty. They feel very guilty, right? They're living life. Their husband passed away. And I actually heard it from a Peloton instructor, and and I loved it. And it stuck with me. And she says, we honor legacy by living our life. And we honor them. We honor their lives by doing everything we can to live our life and make every minute count, right? And be as healthy as possible, because you can't make every minute count if you don't feel so good, right? So make every minute count, go for your dreams, go for your goals, put yourself out there. And that is really how you honor loved ones. It takes time. It's not gonna, like whatever that time frame is to move through it. But then once you do, go for it. Even working
Love it.
out, I would, when I started working out, I had bought a little DVD player and put it in my garage, and I'd back out my garage, and I was committed. I'm like, okay, I'm committed to this whole, I'm going to work out thing. And there are days I would go in there and I'd press play and I would just sit on my mat and cry. I just cried. But I said, every day I'm going to go do it. And the next day, some days I would give it my all. Some days it was a little whatever, but just honor where you're at, but keep going forward when you're ready for all that.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's beautiful and inspiring. It shows how resilient you are, especially because you're now in love again and you recently married. And
Yes.
Congratulations. I'm wondering, a lot of people you hear, after they get their hearts broken for whatever reason, someone ghosted them or the terrible tragedy that you experience, they don't want to do it again because they don't want, the pain is so bad. Obviously you forge through that fear, but I'm wondering, does it stay with you? The fear that you'll lose again and that it's worse than the love that you're experiencing perhaps, or not, obviously.
Yeah. So this story I don't tell very often, but I'm going to just share. So Wes, my current husband, when we started dating, I was like, okay, he looks healthy, he eats healthy, like, like
you're like giving him blood tests and like you have to go
check the boxes. Well, so I'm a strength, I'm working out with weights. He was a runner, and I was like, yeah, I like being outside. Maybe you should teach me how to run. And so he's like, okay. So we go, and he's like, oh, I feel something right here. And he had a stent. It's genetics. He had a stent. And it happened twice. And he's like, I'm going to go get it checked out. Would you drive me to the hospital? And I'm like, oh, no, like, I don't want to go. No, that's not in my wheelhouse anymore. But I did. And we go there and he's going in to get it cleaned out. The doctor comes out and says, and we have only been dating, Wes and I, at this point, 6 months. And the doctor comes out and really fast. And I'm like, he's like, we didn't clean the stent out. And I'm like, oh, because it's good. And he said verbatim that he didn't drop dead on you is unbelievable. He's not moving, he's not budging. And he ended up having a quadruple bypass heart surgery. What the doctor said, what saved him was his healthy lifestyle, because it was very genetics and because he was so attuned to how he feels. But I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Anyway, so to your point of nerves, yes.
You stayed with him. So you obviously recognized that, okay, here's a man who had a really serious health issue, but I'm going to stay with him because it's worth it for me to risk this.
Yeah. It was, everything happens for these weird reasons, right? And it was during his recovery that, I'm a very loyal person, and I've been through scenarios. So I'm like, I can take care of them, and that's fine. But it's when you have an experience like that, like he did, and life flashes before your eyes, you get to know a person. And it was this person that I hadn't really met yet at the 6-month mark that I really met. And that was really everything. And, we'd have to nurse him, and he'd have to take his little pillow, and we'd walk very slowly for, around the block and just have these amazing heartfelt conversations. And so, yes. And obviously, and it took me a while to get married. We've been together for quite a few years. He always would say he's on double secret probation. He's like, when she's ready, we'll go do it. And so we went and did it in July. So it was very fun. But yeah, I think I definitely had, they don't plan to have an emotional wall, but I definitely think there's something there. But again, it's one life, and love is a part of it. And we might get hurt, but we might not. And if we do, we will survive. Like we will survive, and we pick ourselves up. And, I like to say sometimes we just face plant forward.
Yeah.
Right. Like, here we go again. But it's worth it. It's worth it. It's life. I'm a big proponent of life.
It's worth it. Yeah. No matter how many twists and turns.
Hey, friends and listeners of the Switch for Good podcast. Yep, that's you. I have some really exciting news. Dotsie and I have started a Switch for Good podcast Facebook group. We created it so we can build a community of fans that will help us improve the show and deliver on the topics that you want to learn more about. So we want to hear what your favorite content is, what you want more of, and what you want less of. And if you like the length of the show, Dotsie and I are always talking about the length of the show, right, Dotsie?
Yes.
We want to tailor our show around the needs and desires of our incredible listeners, almost 500,000 of you. And it's really simple to join. Just go to our Switch for Good Facebook page. That's Switch, the number 4, and then Good. And then click on groups. And there we are, the Switch for Good podcast chat. You can post directly in the group, share ideas, talk to other listeners, and connect with like-minded folks. So go, run, join our Facebook group and tell us what you want.
We love myth busting on this podcast. So many myths out there. Always talking about like my and Alexander's generations versus the one now who, we didn't really have any, advertising until the 50s, right? I mean, really strong at, right? And so it was just our generation grew up being like, oh, okay, they said got milk and we went and got a glass of milk. Like that made sense. And now this generation's like, got milk? What the hell is that? I don't know about it. Like Marielle Williamson that was on our podcast. No, you can't say that to me. I know that you're lying. So it's, we've gotten a lot more aware, a lot more sensitive to asking questions. But I'm curious with your friends and your clients that have come to you, what are some of the maybe surprising ways women are manipulated or conditioned by marketing? And what are some of the myths that they're holding on to? We talked about one that to be skinny, it's low calorie. It's cut your calories down. Yeah. What are some others that you have seen that you can myth bust?
Oh, well, I mean, the first one is, which is paramount, is when you get 50 and you hit menopause, it's all downhill. Like it's your hormones. There's nothing you can do about it. And just accept your fate. Like just accept it. And that's a terrible one, especially because it's a buy-in and it almost allows for the excuse, not that they want to have, I'm not saying people want to have an excuse, but it's just a buy-in of, well, that is the way it is. And so there's nothing I can do about it. And really, I see a lot of that belief is very strong. So I think that's one of them. It is being changed now. Like you can hear, I always love the narrative. I can hear it's changing and changing more and more, but it's still very prevalent. I would say 75% of the women that initially I start talking to, it is, I don't know if there's any, if there's any hope for me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, look around, look around. Yeah. There's so much hope. And for some, they never had really achieved the weight that they wanted to be at. And now you add midlife mayhem stuff and they're like, it's never going to happen. And then others, their body just completely shifted and they're like, what's going on? So I think that's the first one. That's the first myth. Yeah. The other myth, it's the carbs. So I'm like, please, people, eat your carbs. And I think when I really start talking, a lot of people still, it's when they think carbs, they are thinking breads, pastas, cookies. Yeah, let's keep those at a real good minimum. But we have to bring in those healthy carbs, and they're not going to make you fat. Like they're just, if you eat them, you have to have the right energy balance and you have to have the right amount. You can't overeat everything, but it's not the carbs that are doing it. And our body, we need them. If anybody who's very low carb, they always talk about the keto and the bad mood and all the things. So I think that's the second one is low carb. The third one is the only way to lose weight is to do more cardio. And now I love it that we know not only is that not accurate, and I love cardio, by the way. I'm not one of those people that goes, cardio. I mean, I think it has its place. But strength training, I'm all about, like, you have got to build muscle for your metabolism, but also for healthy aging, right? We're losing, I have an 84-year-old client and we were talking about it this morning, and about sarcopenia, and we start losing muscle mass in our 40s. And then once about 4% a year. And then I believe it's once we have menopause, it's like 4.4% a year. And we have to offset that. We're not going to get bulky. I tell people, I try. I really do.
It's like impossible, especially at our age, right? You're not just gonna be like, whoa, what happened to me?
I'm like, I try. I go, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And so so that's a myth that you're going to get bulky, but that strength training is just for bodybuilders. It's just for fitness competitors. It is for everybody. And it has to be for everybody, and for our bone density, right? Too. Because osteopenia is the other one. And when you combine strength training with eating the right amount of protein, which is another thing so many women don't eat enough of, that really sets you up well for great longevity. So that's another one of the myths.
Yeah, that's a really good one. That the milk marketing has got us believing that it's just what you put in your mouth, right? So they say, we've got the calcium, we've got the vitamin D, the potassium, whatever. But I have so many people ask, okay, because they think the bone density is just the food. So they're going, okay, if I'm not going to have the dairy, what are the other things? And it's calcium, but it's also boron and silica and other, but it's number one. Like if any medical journal will tell you, it is impact. Yes. To the bones and the muscle, right? It's strength training. It's pounding on them, because I learned as an athlete, everything is damage, repair. You have to damage the bone so that it grows back stronger. People are like, oh, how do I do? Is it cycling? Nope. Swimming? Nope. Those are good for you, but we have to be pounding on our muscles and bones to get them.
Yeah. And it's so true. And, they're like, oh, I don't like to run. I'm like, go stand on a vibration plate or just tap your foot. I don't care what you do.
Get this,
but pick up those weights.
Yeah.
It really, the amount, it is a big myth actually still. I mean, this one is very prevalent of, I don't want to get bulky. I mean, it really, I'm like, you just are not, because my generation, it really was be skinny. I grew up in the don't eat fat, it's horrible. And then we ended up eating all the processed junk instead, and everything was that. So that skinny mindset is very, very prevalent. And weights, they still have the image of the bodybuilders or the women that look like they were on steroids. And so I try to smash that image, and there are so many other women that do it way better. And they just, I tell people, I'm like a real person. I lift heavy. You're not going to get bulky. Like, I promise you.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah. There's not enough testosterone.
And you don't have to do
to make that happen.
Yeah. And you don't have to go for an hour every day, like 30 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week. Be intentional, get it done. And progress. Like, it's the main thing, progress. Don't stay at one level.
3/4 of American women are overweight, I think, and 3/4 of Americans, adults, are overweight, but women fall into that. And especially because, well, I'm going to ask you, I have some thoughts because, we're all around our friends and everything, but what are the challenges that you find women face when they try to get healthier? They want to make changes, but they haven't done it for so long because they've been giving their lives to their children, their husbands, their partners, their jobs, their et cetera. They're too busy. They don't, what is the stuff that's going on that they need to switch in terms of mindset and habits?
It's really taking that time. I learned this at a Tony Robbins event, and it's taking that time to really sit and cast your future vision. Because women in midlife are truly busy. It's not, it's not a fallacy, and they don't know how to make the time for themselves because they have been doing so much for everybody else. I think that women keep getting more and more put on their plate, their lifestyle plate, without things coming off. And so we get in what I call the hypnotic rhythm of life. We're not proactive anymore. We're very reactive. So that's where most women that when I start working, they've just been reactive in life. And so I have to get them to kind of think again, like when you were young and you're thinking, I want to be an Olympic athlete, or I want to be an actress, and I'm going to go to school and I'm going to do this, and I want to have a family. We thought about our lives and we worked towards that. And then at some point we got busy doing life.
Mm-hmm.
And I was shaken up because of my life events, but not everybody has life events. So they stay in this moment and then they look in the mirror and they're like, how'd I get here? I don't want to be here, but I don't know what to do. And I have all these things. So I'm like, let's cast the future visions. What do you want, like, this second season of life to really look like? And we have, if you are healthy, we have a lot of life ahead of us. What do you really want it to look like? Do you want to be traveling? Do you want to be taking grandkids to the theme parks?
Yeah.
Do you want to garden without pain? Like, it could be that simple. Do you want to do water sports? And really take that time. And that's the why. Like, mine was deep health. Do you want to be off medications, prevent cancer? What is it? But at the same time, it's what happens if you don't. Like, right? What does it look like in 5 years or 1 year if you do nothing? What does it look like in 5 years? And that really, I mean, it's crazy, but it really helps to set the stage for, I need to do something. Then we have to work on the mindsets of, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Like, we are going to go all in, I'm going to go all in on a diet and I'm going to go all in on here. And if I make one tiny little mistake, it's trashed and I'm going to wait till Monday, which turns into the next Monday and then the next week. So we have to work on that, focus on progress over perfection instead of the all or nothing. And honestly, that they're worth it, that they're worth the time. And to remind women who give so much that if you don't take care of you, all these people that you're loving on and doing for, you may not be around to take care of them. And, sometimes people are like, that's a little harsh, Nancy, but I'm like, it's true. Yeah. It's so true. Like, at some point it's going to catch up, for some, maybe not, but most people, something's going to catch up. So it's working on that. And they're like, oh, a big one is the knowing and the doing. I'm like, we know a lot. We can Google anything, right? You want to know the info, just Google it. It's right there. So it's helping to bridge that gap from what you know to what you do. And I'll often say, is when somebody says, I need to lose weight or get healthy or something, and then you start giving them ideas and they're like, I know that. The minute you say, I know that, you actually shut your brain down from absorbing the information enough to be able to go and take action. So unless you're doing something consistently and successfully, meaning getting the results you desire, maybe you don't know. So if we can open that door, then they can start receiving the information and doing the things that are going to help them move forward. But mindset is huge. Mindset is almost really before the tangibles of, like, this is what you do now.
I think it can be so scary for a woman who has centered her life around helping other people and doing things to suddenly say, this is what I need for myself, because it upsets the dynamic of the entire family structure, friend structure. And that can be extremely scary for a woman. Do you find that?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. They're like, well, my family's not going to want to eat this way. It's a sad one. Sometimes the spouse may not want the other spouse to look better, feel better. It brings up other insecurities. That is where I say having a coach and our accountability person or someone to hold your hand and walk you through and help you navigate that. Because we don't have to be rude to those people and we don't have to diss them and say, but there's always a way to make it work. There's always a way. But when you're flying solo, it can be very, very hard. And the minute it gets to that moment where it's like, this is too hard, you quit. But if you have someone you can lean on, friend, coach, accountability partner, whoever, that can say, no, let's figure this out and then keep going, that really helps. It helps a lot. And that's why community, when we run some group rounds, and it's so powerful, women who don't know each other like supporting each other. It's like, what is happening here? It's so good, because everybody gets it. It's tricky when you've been taking care of everybody else and everything else. And it's hard sometimes to also have to face your own reality. It can be easier to say, I need to take care of them. I need to do this. I need to do that, than to look in your brain or the mirror, wherever you're looking, and go, oh, okay, something's got to give, and it's up to me. And that's very scary too. Then you have all the other things.
Those are a lot of really good mindset tips. I'm curious about maybe someone that you are trying to motivate who suffers from chronic procrastination.
So many.
Right. I mean, it's a thing. Not naming any names. Might be Dotsy.
It's not Dotsy.
I was going to say, I don't think so.
It's something. It is. No, things that I am afraid of, or I mean, and that's all of us, right? I mean, that's what you would procrastinate on. But some of us, and I have been, like, it could be anything, right? I mean, it could just be, I mean, chronic procrastination can just be, I've seen it certainly become almost a disease for people, an inhibitor of living their best lives, for sure. So I'm just wondering if you have some tips. Maybe there's some people listening that are like, yeah, that's my thing. I want to do it, but then I go, I will do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. One, I mean, it's fear. Procrastination is nothing more than fear. Like, it's like, will I fail again? Is it going to work this time? You know, by the time I work with so many women, they've done, like me, I call it every shiny syndrome object out there that, like, attracted me. I did, and I failed. It never lasted. So they have that, am I going to fail again? Am I going to fail again? Why start? So we really have to kind of talk about that. But I think the biggest thing is really breaking it down. It's going from, you do not have to go from 0 to 100 overnight. Like, it's not, okay, I'm over here and I eat this way and I don't move and all these things. And now tomorrow I'm going to be working out, you know, going on some crazy program and working out 2 hours a day and all these things. What can you do? Can you bring your tennis shoes from your closet to your door? And it sounds so simple, but sometimes you get them to bring their tennis shoes from the closet to the front door. And then you have them put their workout shorts on them. Then you have them put it on. And it takes longer. I'm like, yeah, your behaviors match your goals. It takes longer, but you're doing something. So the time is passing anyway, and we have to break these old habits. And I've worked with someone, it took almost 2 months just to get half a can of beans on their plate. And now they eat like crazy well. But that initial, and they kept going, see, I can't do it. See, I can't do it. And I'm like, you can do it. You can. And so you just start very small. And we ask them, what are you willing, able, and ready to do? And if they don't say with a 10, I can do that and that and that, we can break it down. Let's break that down. What are you willing, able? And then if they really,
like
really,
right now, not in a week from now, right now, what are you willing to do?
Right now, what are you willing to do? And then sometimes you have to sit down and go, you have to ask yourself, how bad do you really want this? Because maybe, and it's okay. I tell people, like, I mean, never with your health. I can never not be like that with your health, but with certain goals and things, I'm like, if it's not what you really want, like, what are you doing it for? Like, how bad do you want it? You have to really want it to finally make that. Like, if you really want to be off medications, if you really want to have a great life, if you know, but if you're kind of like, I don't really care, that we have to work on that. And if you really don't, there's nothing I can do. Like, right? Like, that has to come. That's an inside job.
And sometimes I find that people's commitment to something else is really larger. So, for example, when you maybe not rocking the boat in a household is really more important to someone than asserting themselves and saying, you know what, I'm not making dinner because I need to go to the gym, and to uncover their other, what we call hidden commitment to something else might be greater. It doesn't mean it's wrong. If you want a household where everything goes the same and that's more important to you, where you don't fight with your husband or your kids, then, but it's just about uncovering you might be more committed to that's getting in the way of what you say you want.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's that. And also knowing like anything is fine, but being aware too of the consequences of all our actions, what inactions and actions. So that might have like the bigger play right now, but is there a way we can still have you moving forward that doesn't cause this big disruption? Like maybe you can't go to the gym at dinner, but can you get up 10 minutes early and walk around the house 10 times? I mean, so we have to like, definitely, I love the word uncovering. I love that. And then figure out, okay, so you'd say that, and then you don't want to do anything. What's that going to look like in a year, in 5 years? And is that what you want then? And if they're like, no, then we have to figure something out. So it's a process for sure.
Okay. Last question. We've got a toughie for you, or I think it's kind of a toughie. Do you think that the body positivity movement ever encourages or could encourage lifestyle habits that can negatively affect an individual's health?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I always say I'm the very unpopular opinion that body positivity, this is what I learned, because growing up, I really thought my weight was my worth. No matter what size you are, your weight is not your worth, but your weight can be your health. And we can't continue to I have to make sure I say this clearly. We will always celebrate the person. We always celebrate the people. We celebrate who they are. We love on them, but we cannot celebrate the obesity and the health epidemics that come with it. We're killing ourselves. And I'm like, we can't have body positivity if we're not doing something positive for our body. And that is treating it right with the right foods and the movement. And it's not a size. I have to like in the animal kingdom, a healthy giraffe is a healthy giraffe. A healthy rhino is a healthy rhino. It's not the size, but are you treating your body with everything that it needs to thrive fully, to be healthy, to give you the energy that you need? That's probably where I land, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you just can't. Yeah, I'll speak for myself. You can't eat McDonald's every day. I've coming out of my eating disorder. If I was eating fast food, because I was skinny fat, as you were saying. I appeared skinny, and then I got pretty fat. Yeah. Me, right. And both of those were entirely and completely unhealthy, because I was eating Kentucky Fried Chicken and Pizza Hut and Taco Bell and McDonald's. Like that is not, I wasn't serving myself.
Right.
And whatever the size was,
right,
appeared to be. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's just like me. I was an unhealthy vegan. I mean, and I say this to vegans I get all the time. I'm vegan. I'm like, oh my gosh. First of all, love all the stuff out there for the animals. Like, that people can now not eat so many animal products. But nowadays, you can have the standard American diet, and be vegan, because there's so much processed food now. And so like, you've got to get those whole food plants in you. You have to. And so not the size, but I just can't celebrate unhealth. I can't. Because I've seen what it does. So many people have seen what it does, and science shows us what it does. It's not like we're not making it up.
Right. I really appreciate your answer there and your honesty. And thank you for busting some of the marketing myths that women listen to, or, we kind of fall prey to, and love learning and repeating the fact that it's not calories in and calories out, right? And carbs are not the enemy, and we need to strength train for more bone density. And I love take care of yourself to be there for others. And also don't think you have to go from 0 to 100 in one day or in one afternoon. And I don't know. And then my favorite, we honor legacy by living our best life. I just feel like I want to print that out and put it on my computer. Like, so I see it all the time. So thank you so much. You were phenomenal.
Oh, thank you for having me. I enjoyed it. I really appreciate it.
I just want to add one thing that you can find more of Nancy's wisdom on her podcast. So tell us where people can find
podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm super excited. My co-host Alicia Ziegler and myself, we started a podcast called Give a Shift, and it is how we can make those shifts in our life, small or large, that will have positive influence on the way we live. And so we're both super excited about it. We're both vegan, but we bring in all kinds of guests from everywhere. And it's our goal to really help people live their life as best as they can.
Wonderful. So,
yeah, thank you.
And your website?
Oh, full name, nancyleedsgribble.com.
Excellent.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy, for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.